Welcome to the Living Room Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Smith Lordeus, creating a space where real people have raw conversations. Make yourself at home and let's get into it. Hey fam, I'm excited today because I've managed to pull someone very special away from his busy schedule to join me in the living room. Someone who's been my partner through thick and thin for almost 2 decades. Y'all know I like to keep it real, and there's no one I keep it real with more than my boo thing, my husband, Smith. Smith is not only my rock, but also an amazing father to our 2 children, Savannah and Ethan. When he's not being my biggest supporter in all of my business ventures, he is bringing his own unique perspective to everything that we do. So, babe, thank you for joining me in the living room today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Or as I remember coming to America, I'm very happy to be here.
So, how are you feeling being on the other side of the mic today?
I'm still actually working that out in real time, if I'm being quite honest. I'm not intimidated. I've listened to I've listened to all your episodes, and it's just I just treat it as if we're just having a conversation with friends. So
Your best friend.
yeah, I'm in with you.
Yeah, I like
as well.
you too.
I like you too.
Mm-hmm. So, I realize many of our listeners might not know our story. We've been together since college, but what was it about me that caught your attention way back at UF when I was at Santa Fe? What made you say, that girl, that's the one right there?
Well, actually, how I remember the story.
Lord. Mm-hmm.
So, I remember in college, I think we met we met at church, and you and your roommates moved up from South Florida during my sophomore year at UF, and I remember I think my very very first interaction with you was brief. So it was more of I knew you were from South Florida, and you were coming up. It was like a quick. I think you guys came for like a brief event, and then next thing I know, y'all were gone. But when you came up, I don't know. I just thought you guys were cool. I mean, initially it wasn't oh man, I'm in love. It was just
We were friends.
we were just friends.
We built a friendship first.
Yeah, we built a friendship. I had my suspicions that, when you gave me that first card saying I love you,
Oh my gosh.
And,
it was literally just a term of endearment. It wasn't me saying I actually in love with you.
So guys, so for all the listeners, this is her acknowledgement that she said the first I love you. And it was written. It was written.
Oh my gosh.
But
what was the one thing that said once we, had our friendship and everything, what was the one thing that said to you that this is the one?
I think I can't quite place my finger on it, but I think it's a couple of things. I wouldn't say it's just one thing, but one, we were just friends. We always had great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think every time we had conversations, it really wasn't stale. It wasn't shallow. We laughed a lot. I think I realized that. I think we had a good sense of humor, even a little bit, even for the taboo stuff at that time. Like you just, I don't know. It's just kind of like for example, like things you just can't say when you're at church, and you just, like silly stuff, nothing vulgar, but just silly stuff. But I just felt like we had a sense of humor. I think we had depth. We were able just to have real conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the strength of our friendship and becoming best friends, and just not having that fluff only talk, so to speak, and really getting to know each other on a deep level. And I think it was because I got to know so much about you on so much depth, I guess. I feel like that made you so much more attractive to me because I got to get on those deeper levels. And I don't know, for me, that was one of the things that was like, okay, he's my best friend. Like, why not be with my best friend?
Same,
Yeah.
same. Yeah. But yeah, so it was just, yeah, humor, deep talks. You were actually one of the very few people that called me Smith before I chose to go by Smith. Because
Oh, yeah, that's
for
right.
those that don't know, like for people who've known me for a very long time, like in high school, they knew me as Smitty.
Mm-hmm.
So in high school, I was Smitty, and my friends from high school, there was like a large group of us. So, um, if you ever were around me and my friends from high school, they would just say Smitty. And I think right around, I think 21 or a little bit afterwards, I think, no, actually, no, much later when we got married, I think I decided to go by Smith. But you just like calling me Smith. And I felt like you took me seriously. I think, for me, I had a bubbly personality. I was very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I joked a lot, but you saw you were one that's beyond the surface, I would say, and I think that's what caught my eye with you.
Okay. Okay. So today we're diving into when the road turns, finding beauty in the unexpected. Life can be like jazz music. You can have those basic notes, but the magic happens in the improvising. So babe, thinking back to when we first got together, what were some of the dreams and plans we had for our future? Like, what was your vision for us?
Man, that's one. Before I answer the question, one thing that's a staple is you always had great analogies. I was like, dang, like so what you guys are hearing is just straight off the dome. Danny's always had unique perspective, but I think what what you're talking about is just I think just the dream. I think what everybody has like what the 5 year plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in the original 5 year plan, I would say I think part one is that hey, we're gonna get married. Check.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna graduate with my engineering degree. I was gonna be the hotshot engineer, like kind of on pace to be the Black Bill Gates, so to speak. I mean, that was it. We were in Gainesville, Florida at that time, so I think I remember thinking that we'll be in Gainesville for a couple of years and then we'll move to Atlanta because at the time a lot of our friends had moved up here, and Atlanta just seemed to be the cool spot. Um,
I had no intention on moving. That was your dream. That was you by yourself.
oh, so you never wanted to leave? Well, yeah. To be honest, yeah, you did say
I
you wanted to
never
be
saw
close.
myself leaving Florida for sure because I just wanted to be near my family.
I mean, I wanted to be near family too, but Miami at the time, I just didn't think Miami was a. Yeah, I grew up most of my life in South Florida, and then I've always wanted to. I mean, I've always been one to seek adventure. I like to new experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, originally before going to UF for college, the school I really wanted to go to was MIT. I wanted to, but it is cold up there. It is freezing in the winters. It's brutal, and I don't even know how I would have survived the winter up there, being in native Floridian. Anything below 70 is freezing.
True, true, true. Um, yeah, I think for me, when I think about our early plans of us being together, I just thought that we would get married, finish college, not have children. I never wanted kids, but just, we would be the cool uncle and auntie, for our friends' kids and my sister's kids and Carl's kids. And we would just live our life, live maybe in the city, in a high rise or something like that. Just traveling and living life. I think that's just having our careers,
Yeah,
doing our thing. Is how I think I just kind of envisioned our life. But it's funny how we can map out like these perfect routes for our lives, and then because I remember when having like our 5, 10 year plan kind of laid out, doing our vision boards and stuff like that. Um, but now looking at where we are now, like life has, put this whole different blueprint out for us. And one of those big unexpected turns for us at the time, we kind of just touched on it, was moving to Atlanta in
14.
2014. Yeah. What was going through your mind during that transition?
Oh man. So before moving to Atlanta, I think the first big shift I want to say is that um, yeah, year one, and then when we got married, it's funny because when we, I think we, I, you know, I feel like we got married pretty young by normal people. So I think we were like 24, 25
24.
um, when we got married, and then you know, I think going into a marriage, first thing I thought about, yes, I'm ready to be a husband, right? Ready to embrace the role and so forth. And then the first shift is that obviously we had Savannah in our first year, so she was our beautiful miracle baby, and I think so when with her being born, I think that changed a lot. Of we had to just definitely changing values and priorities. So I think prior to the move to Atlanta, I think our lives is adjusting just with having another human just to take care of and to grow and to nurture. We weren't in the same city with our families,
Yeah.
and I think that was tough. I am so grateful for the time in Gainesville because we had such a strong community. I think we had a lot of friends that helped us out with babysitting and so forth.
We had a community
Yeah,
in Gainesville. Yeah.
yeah, and I think even though there was that part of us, that was a part of me that was like, oh, career, and I think career took a step back from a career standpoint. I think we stayed there for, let me see here, about 7 years. I think Savannah was about 7 right before we moved to Atlanta, and I think the move to Atlanta was for career. At that time, I had an opportunity to move with the company I was with, and to pursue and advance my career more aggressively. And I just felt like, I was so apprehensive because, you know, I think it's a quote I remember saying is that, hey, if you don't sacrifice for your goals become the sacrifice. And I think for those years, while, I wouldn't change, just what we have in our how our family started off. It was, hey, your 5 year plan, and then you're reworking the 5 year plan every year. But I do feel like that transition honestly, it was I was excited, I was scared, I think I was nervous. Just the fear of failure of, man, what happens if this doesn't work? I don't even think I changed my driver's license over the first 2 years when we moved up here, because in the back of my head, I'm thinking, if this does not work out, we still have our Florida license, we still have a Florida residency. One of us will still have roots in Florida. But for me, I think it was I think it was needed. I think it was the right time. But with any transition is never comfortable. It I think it challenged me as a person in terms of just, hey, you know what, this is your first opportunity to go for a dream. I think I thought about you, and just you at the time we were both working, like right before. I think it was the first time, we were both working for a couple of years, and you were giving up working at the school that Savannah was going to. So we're like, hey, we're taking this opportunity, but we're going to go down to one income. We don't know too many people up here. We had some connections, but where we lived is an hour away.
Right.
And then not only that, In Gainesville, 15, 20 minutes, you can get around the town. You can go from one end of town to the next, right?
Yep.
And I think we came up in the summer, so we were fooled by the traffic.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize that I was signing up for like an hour plus of traffic one way to get to work, to come back. So I think the standard of living changed. So even though it was a great opportunity initially, I questioned the decision because it was, oh my gosh, everything's an hour. I was now losing 2 hours out of my life on the road, and I didn't get the chance to spend as much time with you, with Savannah.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the strength of community. I think we had prospects, but there was, even when we first just got up here, so much stuff. It was like dealing with the transition of moving from another state, building another community, and then on top of that, the initial community you thought you were building, all of that changed.
Literally within like the first week.
Yeah, so what I would say, I just feel like those years was a series of stretches, and I think it just took a lot of strength, just in our relationship, just trying to figure out what our new normal is.
Yeah, man, that move for me was like jumping off of a diving board, not knowing how deep the water was, because I was terrified. One, I didn't want to move, but our job, your job circumstance, it was an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up. And I remember feeling so anxious, so sad, because I didn't want to move. And I remember even when we were, trying to find little ways to get me excited about moving, it was funny. Remember when we were like, I was like, Atlanta? What is in Atlanta? Do they even have a Publix?
Oh, actually, wasn't that your criteria?
Yep.
You said, okay, wherever we live, we need to be within a mile or two of a Publix.
Yep.
We need to be. Gosh, I forgot what it was. It was Publix. It was.
Yeah, I needed a Publix.
You needed something to keep you going.
Yeah, I was like, I need some kind of remnant of home in Florida, and so I needed a Publix. And I remember just fighting it emotionally, like just not allowing myself to just get on board at first, and just not being very supportive of it because I just didn't want to. And it kind of was a spur of the moment opportunity. It wasn't like something we had planned for a couple of months and stuff like that. It was like, here's an opportunity, we gonna take it. We didn't have a lot of time to think about it, so it was just really hard for me. But I know sometimes you gotta leap before you can look. And I will say Atlanta has opened up a lot of doors for us that I feel like we would have never known existed if we had stayed in Florida, in Gainesville. But let's talk about one of our biggest transitions, our beautiful chocolate gumdrop of a son, Ethan. His autism diagnosis at age 2 was definitely not something in our original plan.
Right.
How did that moment reshape your understanding of fatherhood for our family journey?
Oh wow, that's that is still very fresh and raw for me. I think being blessed to have Savannah, and Savannah, till this day, Savannah is a bright girl. Right now, she just suffers from what we call teenagerism. Just kidding, no, but Savannah, I feel like, I think before we get to Ethan, I would say that, typically boys are easy, I would say, but I think having a girl as a first child, I think forces you, at least in my experience with Savannah, I think it forced myself, I think it forced us to be more mature parents, because there's a lot of emotional I think with Savannah, I had to dig deep into like certain parts of me from an emotional standpoint and care. So I feel like, with having Savannah first and being, not while you're still, you're still learning the ropes and figuring things out, but I felt like she helped us to be more mature in our approach. So with Ethan, with his diagnosis, I think, just with every parent, you celebrate new birth. I think the challenges of just of him coming into this world, that was
Scary.
that was chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about having to make the decision between, like Danny and I having to decide between Ethan's life and her own. I felt like that was just an impossible choice. Like, how do we reconcile that? And I think that was traumatic. And then once we got through that, it was more like, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief, like, okay, we just made it.
Right.
You were good, Ethan was good. And then I remember when the doctor was like, hey, we noticed something, but we think everything's okay. And then fast forward 2 years later, all the growth milestones that you hope to celebrate, you're like, wait, we're seeing things, speaking is delayed, walking is delayed, speech is delayed. And, there's that part of you that's just like, oh man, it's nothing, right? It'll be okay. It's
Right.
just the way, some kids take longer and so forth.
And it was hard too because all we had was Savannah to compare,
Pair.
and she was an overachiever over here walking at 10 months, barely 10 months, and she's walking. And so we were like, that's all we had to go off of as a milestone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when I think about that day when we had the evaluation, I think I felt like that day was honestly, was like one of the longest day of my life, of our life, on our journey. And I think, and I know those professionals, bless their hearts. Anyway, that's a tough job to do. I think I can say that from a mature place today. But in the moment, it's a bit. You have your dreams and your goals of, for every child. You dream about their future. You dream about what they're gonna be, who they're gonna marry, their friends, and so forth. And when you have a professional tell you, hey, change a game plan, and when they deliver, just for those of you who haven't experienced it, when they deliver, it's very direct, straightforward. I don't think it's necessarily mean-spirited, but they almost have to break your heart, almost. And you have to now then divorce yourself from a lot of these dreams and hopes you have, because we were told that in terms of adapting, in terms of cognitive function, in terms of how he tested at that particular point in time of being on the spectrum, there was very little hope.
Yeah.
And I did not fully understand what autism meant. I didn't even understand it to be a spectrum disorder. I didn't understand it was social. It was also all very raw and real. And honestly, I didn't know what that would mean, how much life would change. I get emotional about thinking about this, but it's, I think at that point in time, it was yet another transition. It was just like, oh God, we are hundreds of miles away from family. We already made this one transition, and now we have another transition. What does this mean for us? What does it mean for him? And it's kind of when you feel unprepared.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that Mike Tyson quote, how, hey, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. I felt like I got knocked out. And it almost feels like it almost feels like grief, like you're losing someone, but you're not, but you haven't lost anybody, right? You know, we didn't lose Ethan. Ethan's alive. He's well. He was moving, but it was just a dream.
Yeah.
And I think being robbed um, of hope, and I think that's what killed me. That's what I felt like in that moment that killed me. But at the same time, having trying to find the strength to understand that, you know what, I don't know how, but we're gonna get through this together as a family. I think, I think about how hard it was just on you.
Mm-hmm.
For both of us, we were just trying to figure out, look, was it something that we did wrong? What happened? And then also just for Savannah, being the older sibling, and you're excited to have your little brother, and also not fully understanding how does that change your own childhood,
Yeah.
So I'd say that it changed our entire family, how we interacted with people. Like going out wasn't the same. We had to make decisions. Somebody had to stay home. Um, Making sure we felt he was protected.
Yeah, I think we did. At least for me, I know I was like, protect him from the world.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think we told people outside of like our inner circle that he had autism for a minute, almost a year or so before he started Marcus. This is when we kind of let the whole world know. At that point.
Yeah, I think it was because I think how did they frame it? I think they framed it as an early developmental delay. And I think yeah, so I think we just waited. We were just trying to. I think we were just learning in real time. It's, hey, now we had never been a parent of a 7-8 year old, so we're trying to meet Savannah's needs, and then now Ethan has his set of needs.
That were really demanding.
Yeah, really demanding. So what does that mean for her in terms of attention? I don't know. Do you remember the movie Wander?
Yeah.
I remember
my eyes out. I was like, not our family on TV.
TV, yeah, except it was except it wasn't a black family. It was just but it was but it literally mirrored our family.
Yeah,
like
sure.
it literally mirrored even down to the dog. So that I think that was one of the. I remember that because I remember that was the first time in a while I think a movie made me cry. I mean, I was shedding thug tears, and Savannah caught me, and she was just like, "Daddy, are you crying?" And I was just like, "No, I ain't crying."
Thug tears, you funny.
But I think it's quite an emotional journey, and I think it still is, even though this will be year 8 since we've had his diagnosis, and I feel like I think I've coped a lot stronger. I think we've all kind of grown, but I still have moments.
Yeah, I remember feeling like we had been handed this book in a whole nother language that we couldn't read. And there was just a lot to learn, and we had to learn it fast. And I remember feeling a lot of mom guilt, feeling like, my oven worked perfectly on my first child and baked her just right, and my oven broke on my son, and feeling responsible and not understanding why and all that other stuff. And then just grieving, like you said, grieving the milestones, grieving the life that I dreamed that he'd have. And I think I feel like it's going to be a lifelong grieving process, honestly, because there are things that I haven't even thought of about grieving, like right now, playing football little league and flag football. Like that's my grief right now. Like him not being able to experience that or be like a team mom and stuff like that. Those are things that I had dreamed for him. Um, Years down the line, it'll be, who knows, maybe marriage. Like not, you know, him having a spouse. Maybe years after that, it'll be me grieving grandchildren. I don't know. Um, so I do feel like it's gonna be a lifelong process. That it's gonna come up when it comes up, and there'll be spans when I'm good. And but I think Ethan has been one of our greatest teachers, and in just how to maneuver, how to communicate beyond words, how to celebrate progress in different ways. I know when we were talking back when he got diagnosed, it just seemed so hopeless. Like there was just no hope. It was just snatched from us that he could do better and be better. And I remember when we were talking the other day, about Ethan and about how proud we were of him. We had just had his IEP meeting, and we were talking about how, if you guys are not into anime, if you are, you probably know my husband was comparing him to Solo Leveling, which is an anime show that we watch as a family. The manga, according to my daughter, is better than the TV show, so you can read the manga. But in Solo Leveling, it's about this kid who, like, they're rated in different ranks, from, pretty much good to bad. I'm probably killing this explanation, but they're rated in different ranks from good to bad, for fighting and stuff. And they got to, like, go in these portals and fight these monsters and stuff. And this E rank, which is the lowest rank you could be, the weakest rank you can be. And usually when you're awakened in your rank, that's just your rank. There's no...
You can't
improve. And I feel like that's what the doctor told us. Like, Ethan was an E rank and he could not improve. There was no hope for him to be any better than what he was at that moment. And Ethan has just been blowing us away every day with his language, with his progress. He's been solo leveling, in the show, this guy, like, he's able to level up, and now he's like an S rank now, or something like that,
or
A rank. I don't know, whatever the highest rank is. That's where he's at right now.
Plus.
Yeah, S rank plus. And he's like, the highest rank right now, and he's just been leveling up. And I feel like that's been Ethan. He's just been solo leveling up. And
yeah, I would say so. I think he's I agree with you. I think the best advice that someone, I can't remember who told us this for the life of me, but I remember how it made me feel. I remember the advice was to for me, I'm very future oriented, which can create a bit of anxiety, or anxious attachment styles, I guess, as I've learned. But I think the best advice was to stay grounded, stay in the present, because if I go too far into the future, that I don't know, that none of us knows what's gonna happen.
Right.
It's easy to lose the joy of the moment and miss out on what's right in front of you, and quite frankly, just be sad and depressed. And I think that that's helped out tremendously. So for me, just with him, just try to stay grounded and try to celebrate the milestones that work for him. And I think so. I think so often, I think it's easy we have our own clock.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'm like, you know what? I see a challenge. Okay, we'll execute. We see the goal. Let's go get the goal, right? We'll get it done in a week. We'll get it done in a few days. And with him, it's, I think it's really helped to redefine what progress is, and just to really be present. And by being present, we're on the journey with him. And he's he's one of my little, he's one of, like you said, he's one of our best teachers, but he's my little hero.
Yeah.
Because I've learned as much as we're helping him adapt and learn the world, he's teaching us. He's taught me so much more. So but he's a huge inspiration. Even when I would go to work, I think about you, Savannah, and him, and I always see, one of the things what makes me so proud of him, and why I say he's my little hero is that every interaction, I know with all the challenges that he has, and I don't even know if he's even aware of
Right.
it. But I know that he is giving everything he's got, every bit, every neuron, every
Yeah.
aspect, every smile, like he's giving 100%
All the time.
all the time of who he is, and that's all he knows. And he's just a pure bundle of joy. Like if you cannot be in the room with Ethan and not smile, or just be in some way like moved, and he is him.
Yeah, he is.
Like Dion says when it's
So, how do you think, or how would you say that we've grown as a couple navigating through these unexpected turns?
I think it's forced us, definitely, I think it's forced us to be very intentional with our time. And I say that because with him, it's like something as simple as going to the store or just, just doing things. I think it's forced us to be extremely intentional with our time. Because I think one of the things that can get so easily is that obviously we love our kids, and you and I are married to each other.
Right.
We're not married to our kids, but we love our kids, and we're here. We die for them. We're doing all this.
Smile in my mug shots and them intros.
We're doing everything. We'll do everything for them, but at the same time, I remember, earlier on, I think. You ever feel like, that feeling when you feel like you're doing everything, like you're doing everything right, but then you feel like you're doing nothing, or you just you're just not, either you're not doing enough, or like I felt there was a point in time where I distinctly remember feeling that, we're pouring in so much to them that by the time it comes to us, either we both didn't have enough to give to each other.
Yeah.
We weren't taking, like, we didn't have to, unless somebody came through, like a friend or anyone came through for like a quick weekend vacation. We those were a lot longer.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we were taking care of each other and our needs and giving each other the space we need to be, because we
just had to be on all the time.
Yeah. I think it's just we're operating out of this immense responsibility. So I feel like it's definitely helped us to be more intentional with our time, to make time for each other.
Yeah.
To not neglect that. I think it's helped us to be more present.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, I think it's even how we just track, how do we measure success? I know that's like hey, how do you measure success, right? And I know there's a college football coach, Nick Saban, he always talks about the process. And before, it would have just been about, hey, what's the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. It's either put our faith in the outcomes. Like, what's the outcome? Did you get an A or did you get a B? Right. I remember, like, Savannah, I used to always mess with Savannah. Like, if Savannah came home with, she's like, Dad, I had a 85. I was like, you're 85% of the way home. And I used to mess with her. But now, I think it's not about the outcome. I think we focus more on the process and just thinking through how you get to the destination matters just as much as getting there. I think it's also just try to have as much fun, because I think there's a lot of things to that causes stress, and I feel like we just try to the best we can just to try to have more fun together as
Yeah.
a family. Together as a family, making sure we have one individual time with Savannah and Ethan separately, and then also just you and I just making sure that we protect um, our time, because there comes a day once Savannah is approaching graduation here, so she's about to start off her journey.
Yep.
Ethan will likely to be with us, but if whatever changes, you and I are still gonna have at the end of the day, you and I are looking at each other, and we still have to, for me, I still want to be able to connect with you. I still want to be able to know that you got my back, and for you to know I got yours, and just to be there for each other, just to take care of each other in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we are, the most important relationship. Our relationship is what keeps our house afloat, Lourdes Enterprises afloat. And what they say, happy wife, happy life, but that's not what we say in our house, because my husband matters to me, and so it's happy spouse, happy house.
Yeah, or Team Lourdes.
Yeah, we just say Team Lourdes. But when I look back at where we are now compared to what we planned, it's almost like we were trying to like paint by numbers, and then we ended up creating this whole new masterpiece freehand. But what's been an unexpected turn in our journey that you're most grateful for?
Oh, wow. Most unexpected turn?
That you're most grateful for?
Besides like changing cities, having I think the most unexpected, I feel like if I had to choose something, I would say that the most what I'm most grateful for is how we've been able to learn how to pivot our dreams. I think if you remember in the beginning where I said, hey, my goal was to be a hotshot engineer.
Right.
If you guys heard that in the background, that's Ethan. He's probably just woke up in the middle of the night.
I know. Look, it's 12:30 in the morning. But look, we got to record the podcast when the house is quiet.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just say understanding how to, or not understanding how, but learning to pivot. I think it's so easy to, when times get tough, it can be very easy just to choose to fold. I feel like we've been through some challenging times, but I think we've had to repivot. So like for me, one of the pivots was rethinking just career outlook. What do I want to be when I grow up? Or just taking advantage of opportunities. Like I went from engineering to now working in finance, and then I think for you, you went from being a homemaker to working at a school to entrepreneur.
Right.
And just pivoting, just from, even just in your journey, like I feel like, if we did not go through, if our journey didn't unpack in the way that it has, I don't know. I don't even know if we're recording a podcast in the wee hours in the morning, that or that you're taking advantage of these entrepreneurial ventures, because a lot of these were largely inspired by our the unexpected.
Yeah.
So I think for us, we've just learned just how to pivot. We've learned how to adapt, and just really just to, what, this was the 5-year plan version 1.0, version 2.0. 3.0, 4.0, and just learning just to dream again and again and again and again, and not being afraid to um, not being afraid to do that.
Yeah, I would say for me, the unexpected turn that I feel like I'm most grateful for, I think, right now, I think is just moving up here, honestly, because for me, that turn led me to building Lock Vibe Studio. And that was something that was definitely not on my vision board.
Well, to be fair, about like when we were in college, I remember when we would talk about, hey, what do you want to do and all this stuff. Vividly remember telling Danny, I just said, you probably should have your own business. You
Right.
probably should be doing, because she was very creative and
I got that CEO energy.
yeah, yeah, you had that, but you're also multi talented, and I remember seeing it way back then. And then of course, Prophet's not nobody listened to the Prophet in their hometown, so she was just like, nah, 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 nah. But it came full circle.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, boo. So let's talk about how we've grown individually through just all these different detours life has thrown at us. What's something that you feel like you've learned about yourself through these different detours that you feel like you wouldn't have otherwise been able to learn or discover?
Um, it's a lot. I feel like I think along the journey, I think just the value that just for me, the value that I bring. I think initially when we first got married and then we had Savannah, there's that feeling of, okay, I need to be, my value comes from my ability to provide financially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of just tied. I felt like my value was heavily tied to that, or to, I need to facilitate all these things. And I think through all the pivots and stuff, I think I've learned that, my value is not limited to monetary. Like I'm not, I don't understand how I allowed my thinking or just being reduced to just, like a paycheck.
Yeah.
Or I think definitely there's a responsibility to support, and I think that's real. I think that's just table stakes. But to feel, I think I felt it too. I think there was just a higher pressure, but I felt like I've noticed that my value is in my presence. My value is in my the time that I give. How I invested my time is, would it be learning just for myself and growing, or being there for you, for a friend. I just think that looking at the world through a different lens, I think it's helped me just to find deeper value and meaning about what I give to the world in a way. Because I feel like there's so often it's just, hey, it's what did I do? What was my output, right? And
Right.
it's not necessarily just that. It's just that, hey, while I am here, how much of my light am I giving to all the things that matter most to me? And also just, I think I just see the world in a completely different light. I think if you were to ask me, even just 5-10 years ago, what was my worldview? Completely different. I think it's constantly just evolving. I think I'm,
Which I think it should, because we evolve and grow every day. You and I aren't the same people we were when we first started dating compared to when we first got married,
oh yeah. I don't know. I'm curious. What would we tell those people?
That part. Man, I think for me, I've learned that flexibility isn't just a physical trait. It's a mindset. And Ethan has been the biggest contributor in me learning that. It's like the water that adapts to whatever container it's in. And I think the more that I embrace change rather than resist it, which is, I like to be in control. So resisting it, this was going to be my first response to to it anyway. But the more I embrace it rather than resist it, I feel like I discover more about myself. I open myself up more for being pushed to grow. But I think that has been my biggest thing is that, flexibility is also a mindset, not just a physical trait.
Yeah, I think if I had to say it's almost like what mental agility, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just being able just to flex and be what you need to be, whatever when the situation arises.
Yeah.
So
So for our listeners, who might be facing their own unexpected turns right now, going through their own detours in life, what wisdom would you share with them just from our own experience?
what wisdom I would share? I think the first thing I would say is just at least this is something that I did for myself recently. You almost have to close your eyes and picture yourself 5, 10 years from now, and whatever version of that you is that you're picturing, you want to look back at your present self and just say to yourself, it's gonna be all right. Um, the reason I say that is because I think in the moment of changes and transition, it can be overwhelming. At least for me, there are times where I felt like, oh gosh, this is just it's always gonna be challenging. It's always, and
Yeah.
I think it's and it may very well be. And I don't know. I think nobody has those specific answers, but I do think that I would just start by telling yourself that look, it's going to be okay. Now, I don't know what okay is going to mean for you or for anybody else, but I think there has to be a deep belief that your circumstances will not will not just define you. I think it's just I think these are just lessons. These are just experiences. You have to almost look at it as a journey. I think one of my favorite quotes is, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And I think that for every challenge, you just have to look at it as, I'm on step 555 and I'm trying to get to 556, 57, and just really focus on the next step. Don't focus on step 900. Maybe you think about it when you're almost there, but I just think just take it a step, literally take things one step at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time, because I think thinking in those terms will help you clear whatever it is that you're going through. I think that's one of the lessons that certainly we've learned from Ethan and Savannah, but that I definitely would share. That's my 2 cents I would share with anyone who's listening.
For me, something that I would add is that sometimes the most beautiful views come after those sharpest turns. Like if someone had told me years ago that I would be a lockpreneur, owning my own studio, lock studio, being a best-selling author, hosting a podcast, I wouldn't have believed them. But I'm like, here I am, and I feel like I've never felt more aligned in what I'm supposed to be doing. So looking forward in the future, where you like to live sometimes, what are you most excited about for our family's journey? Knowing that there's still going to be some unexpected turns ahead, but what are you most excited about?
Well, number one, before the future, I'm just grateful for where we're at today, first and foremost, and just that today we're, we've always been we were a household of two, then we became a household of three, now we're a household of four.
About to become a household of three.
Now about to be with
Savannah
Savannah
going to college.
So that's going to be interesting. So I think it's the next challenge now is how do we how do we now operate with it as a household of three, and just adapting with Ethan. He's getting older. Savannah's a young adult now. Um, there's a ton of parenting transitions. Gosh,
Yeah, that we're gonna
the
have
parent, the parenting transitions are real, guys. I know that doesn't get, at least I don't hear about it as often, but those are real. But yeah, but if in the future, I see us still smiling. I see us still having a lot of fun. I see us growing.
Definitely.
I see us spending time with Ethan. Ethan loves to do activities. Like I think most recently we were at the Special Olympics with him. So I foresee us going to either like those events for him, giving him those new experiences.
Yeah.
Just seeing Savannah come home, seeing we've invested so much in her, and just seeing where she decides to take her journey, and her growth, and also Ethan, because I start having dreams about him. He is, I've had dreams of Ethan like speaking and like sharing a speech about his life story. But for right now, I just see him just growing and being excited. I see you growing in your business. Just seeing a lot of the things that you're putting in, a lot of the hard work in that nobody sees. We see it, but like the mass public doesn't see. But I'm looking forward to seeing what that does. I'm looking forward just for just whatever opportunities that lay ahead, and knowing that we're going to be okay.
Yeah. I love that. I love that we still dream about our futures. We still have our mental vision boards, and we still talk about it like that it's not just like a stale thing for us, where life is just kind of happening to us. I mean, it kind of is, but at the same time, we're still dreaming about what we want our futures to be and what we want it to look like for us in our relationship, for our kids, for our parents, for our friendships, things like that. And I think just having that hope is what makes life exciting, of just thinking about the future. So, babe, I, cannot thank you enough for just sharing your heart and your perspective today, for being here with me today. I think these real conversations are what people need to hear, that it's okay when life doesn't go according to plan. And sometimes those detours become the most beautiful parts of your journey. And I'm really grateful that I get to be on this journey with you, and just sharing this life with you.
Ditto.
I'm glad you're my partner in life and in crime, and I like you and I love you. But before we wrap up, is there anywhere that you want our listeners to connect with you, or that any socials or things that you want to share with anybody? I know you're not really on social media like that, but is there anything you want to share?
I mean, I'm on social media, but not on social media. That's a very accurate.
You're a lurker.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think I'm starting to try to re-engage, but I think for me, LinkedIn is really my social media. So if anyone really wants to connect with me, I guess, and that's more so on a professional career. I love to mentor, or at least just build connections and so forth. So that's. You can look for me, first name Smith Lordeus. Just look for Smith Lordeus on LinkedIn. Okay. If you're wanting just to reach out and connect and have conversations. Beyond that, I will stay incognito. So I will live vicariously through your social media.
Right. I was like, I'm enough social media for the family, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just want to remind everyone that new episodes drop every Wednesday. So hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on raw conversations like this one. That's all for today's episode of the Living Room Vibe podcast, where real people have raw conversations. I'm your host, Danny Lordeus, Thanks for vibing with me. If you're feeling the vibe, follow us on Instagram at the LRV Podcast, as well as hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It helps more people find their way to our living room. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye.